Available on Conroe's FM 104.5, 106.1, and on irlonestar.com. Start your own podcast, create your first YouTube channel, and be on TV. Contact Lone Star Community Radio online at irlonestar.com or call the station message line at 936-647-3776 to take your first step into the radio world.
Thank you for listening to Lone Star Community Radio. This program was broadcasted and recorded live from the LSCR studios in downtown Conroe, Texas. Lone Star Community Radio is supported by listeners like you. Donate and sponsor today. For more information on getting involved with Lone Star Community Radio, contact us at lscrstudios@gmail.com or visit us online at www.irlonestar.com.
You are listening to Lone Star Community Radio on 104.5 KCZWLP Conroe and 106.1 KZCCLP Conroe and worldwide on irlonestar.com.
Hello, everybody, and thank you so much for joining us live on YouTube, live on irlonestar.com, Facebook, and it's just, we're everywhere. And we've got so many different platforms that you can't miss us, even if you try. And I will promise you, you'll enjoy this program because you're going to be smarter for it. Not because of me, not because of Richard, but because we have Denton Florian back. I promised you he'd come back and he'd walk through that door. I was like so proud because Richard said, I bet he forgot. No, he didn't. He said, yeah, but people, conveniently forget, especially if they're on twice in the week. It's hard enough for you to do once a week.
I didn't say he'd forget. I said he came in on Tuesday, so he probably figured his work was done.
I'm sure he hoped it was, and I all the way out the door I said.
So why would he come back?
You're going to come back Thursday for a follow-up for a post-election discussion. I wasn't trying to throw you under the bus or anything, but he was really rude. No, he wasn't. He wasn't. He was trying to get me to call you. And I said, it was too late for me to call you because, no, you were great. And you look wonderful. I feel very underdressed.
Well, I dressed up just for you, Cindy.
Oh,
I was
boy.
like a groid last time.
You could. Sam came on. He goes, do I have to dress? He was on yesterday, my husband. He came on to talk about the Astros because the guy that was was so mad about the election. He said, I'm in such a bad mood. I'm afraid the language I might use while we're talking about anything. And I said, okay. So I got Sam. I said, you want to come talk about the Astros and the history of the Astros, where they came from, and then we can talk about deer hunting and that kind of thing. And he goes, okay. So drug him in here, but he did good. He kept talking. He said, but if you ask, he said, listen, if you put me on there and you're interviewing me and you ask me a question, let me finish the answer. You don't let me finish the answer. And you've done that with other guests. I went, me? And then I look back and I go, yeah, that's true. I have done that before. But I get so excited and I got something that, I want to go, I know something about that. But
you know who my Astro buddy was?
Who?
When I was a kid, they had this thing called the Astros buddy.
Yes.
I never went to a single meeting, but they used to send you stuff, and it was Bob Watson.
Oh.
And Bob Watson scored the 1,000,000th run in Major League Baseball. Later, after this, but I was always proud that, and I never met the guy. I mean, it's not like, we were friends or anything, but Bob Watson was my Astros
cards?
buddy.
Have you got a bunch of cards? And
I don't even remember what they sent you, but they sent kids something.
I think they still do it.
It was, do they? That wouldn't surprise me, actually.
I think you get to visit the ballpark, and I want to say you get discounted tickets, and then you get like a backpack and a bunch of stuff for kids and that kind of stuff.
Well, he knew back when they were the Buffs, and then they became the Colt 45s. Well, they didn't become that, but that's the changes that happened in the evolution till it was the Astros. And so he shared that, and he loves the Astros. He's watched them forever, so he knows everything about them. And it was good. My daughter called me. She says, "Mom, you and Dad got to do a show together, and y'all just argue. It's really funny. When you were arguing, the funniest it was when you were arguing and stuff, and you were saying things about him. And as Sam said, it sounded like you brought me on the show so you could vent to me about how you feel about my deer hunting. And I went, honey, that's not at all. I was just trying to, what that's like as a wife being a widow, deer widow, whenever that all happens. And he said, yeah, sure.
Justin Wilson has some great stories about that.
Oh, about deer hunting and and the deer widows?
Oh, yeah.
Well, that's what I told him. I said, look, my mom took care of everything because I wasn't mad after my mom said, look, while he goes and has fun, you go have fun. There's a lot of things he doesn't want to do with you. You go do all that while he's gone, and then you have a better marriage. And that was a good idea, and it made me not miss him as much. No, but I was like, that's a good idea. Just stay happy. It'll be fine. But anyway, so he was on yesterday, and we talked about you coming on today, and we're going to talk about this. And I said, and he, I should have brought the salt for the crow that Denton's going to have to eat because of all the expectations you had. And I'm telling you, it was great. It may not have been a red wave. It may have been a ripple, but that's not true, though. To me, I think we did great.
Well, it's not over. The midterms aren't over.
No.
Really.
No.
And we're still waiting on a whole bunch of races.
Yeah.
We don't know who controls the Senate. We don't know who controls the House. I think we're pretty easily going to control the House. Depends on what happens out in Nevada and over in Georgia with Herschel Walker and everything. But, this isn't over, really.
Well, it's funny because Fox has 181 for what the Democrats have right now. And, of course, 209 for the Republicans. CNN has 192 for the Democrats and 209 for the... I was like, you had so many more on that station. That was interesting that CNN would give them that many more. So it started worrying me. I said, well, they're 192. That's pretty close to 200, and that's where we are at 209. And so I think it's funny to see how that's going to even out and how that's going to play.
Well, one rule is to manage expectations. And when you're, was it a terrible night? No, it wasn't a terrible night. Was it anywhere close to what everybody thought it was going to be? The answer is that also no.
That's
everybody
right.
was expecting this avalanche, and it didn't happen. And so, but look, the Republicans are going to take control of the House of Representatives. That's a big deal. As we said last time, a couple days ago, you can stop things. The job of the minority is largely stopping things. Whether they will or not, I don't know the answer to that. That kind of remains to be seen. My confidence is pretty low but we'll see. I hope I'm wrong, But
yeah, prove me wrong.
They can stop legislation. They can, if we get the Senate, then they can stop judges. I mean, there's an awful lot they can do, but basically Biden's agenda comes to a screeching halt once they take the House, because you got to have the House and the Senate, and they're not going to have that. So that's a big win. And if you look at the governors, I mean, look at the trends. Look what the governors did. DeWine won in Iowa by 63%.
Wow. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
He sure did. And DeSantis won 60% of the vote in Texas.
Dade County. I thought that was just remarkable because no one had ever won. The Republicans never won
Trump
that county.
lost Dade County,
right.
Miami-Dade. He lost that in 2016 by 30 points.
Yes.
DeSantis lost Dade County in 2016 by 20 points. So the shift is, you have
That's
the
amazing.
Latinos that are moving, and these trends never happen in one election.
Right.
They happen over time, over a series of elections, but that ought to scare the heck out of the Democratic Party,
right.
the shift that's taking place among the Latinos. And maybe they'll second guess all this open border. Do we really want to, hey, we thought all these people were going to be Democrats, and it turns out we've let in millions and millions and millions of people that may turn out to be Republican voters. Oh my gosh, what have we done?
Oh, we forgot that they love their families, they love their religion, they love, the way of life that is here, and they don't want to mess it up. And so it's sad. But the funniest thing was when a reporter asked Biden, so with 75% of the people not liking the way that we're going, the direction of America. What are you going to do about that? And he said, nothing.
Yeah, right, nothing. I mean,
It's like, why would you say that? It wasn't, and didn't follow it up quick enough to say nothing, because I think everything that we're doing is fine. So
the Democrat, one of Bill Clinton's advisors, Doug Schoen, who's a very level-headed guy, a very experienced guy, he's pulling his hair out, what's left of his hair, because he said that we've been trying to tell Biden he has to pivot. He's got to pivot. 75% of the American people, 75%.
That's right. Of anything,
what can you get a 75% approval rating on anything?
Right.
You can't get 75% of the American people to agree that they love ice cream, for crying out loud. So you got that, and Biden's approval rating is in the low 40s. Depending on who you want to believe, 43, 44, 42 maybe. The signs were, you understand all the rhetoric about the red wave. Because who would have thunk
right.
it that it didn't happen? But the idea that what are you going to do differently? Nothing. Okay.
Thanks for the warning.
So,
but it was interesting because he didn't take that as a bad thing, what happened. He took that as a validation that he needs to run again. And so that's what he's counting on now, because this has happened. This is great for his return.
300 kids a day are dying from
fentanyl.
300 a day. That's 110,000 a year. That's our future.
Yeah.
That's the flower of our youth. That's our future. And we're losing 110,000 kids a day because of illegal drugs that you facilitated.
That's right.
You orchestrated and directed and intentionally made that happen, and now you're telling us you're going to do nothing different, nothing about it. I don't understand how that plays, but he apparently he sees that's a good thing. That's to his advantage.
Well, he's got the border czar saying that everything's fine. We've got this under control.
Yeah,
so
sure it is.
He believes that, and that's his scapegoat. He told me it was fine. I didn't know we had such a problem. And if they don't go down there and look at it, it's really sad. And so that Lazar, who's the one down that's in he's a Democrat and he won. Cuellar, yeah. And he won. And so they said, well, because he believes in that he's pro-life, he's pro-family, he's against the crime. He knows that, and he's bad-mouthing what the policies are. And so he took on the role of someone that's more conservative, and that's what the people wanted. They're crying for it.
Well, if you look at the governors, if you look at the Republicans that won, DeWine by 62%, with 62% of the vote. DeSantis with 60%. I think Greg Abbott won with 55% of the vote.
Right.
And who was the other guy? Kemp in Georgia won with 53%. So those are 55 and 53 are solid wins. I wouldn't say those are landslide runaways, but those are solid wins.
Oh, sure.
60% plus. Come on.
Yeah. That's saying something.
And I think Carrie Lake will probably end up being the governor of.
I hope so. She's hilarious. She would be great on the stage of the Republican Party because she's really good.
They got 500,000 votes they haven't counted yet in Maricopa County. 500,000, and they were saying that a bunch of those people took their ballots. They got a mail-in ballot or whatever, but they physically took their ballot because they didn't trust the system. So what does that tell you?
And they just dropped off 160,000 of blended early and late last night, or it was a day late ballots, and blended them. And now they're going to start and try and get that sorted out. Now you imagine how long that's going to take. And
I don't know what that'll
where
do to
they
Mark
come
Kelly.
from.
I don't know what that Mark Kelly voted in favor of 80-something thousand additional IRS agents, more than doubling the size of the IRS. He voted against securing the border. So how does somebody like that in Arizona? How does somebody like that get elected? I don't know, but he certainly needs to be held to that. If you're in favor of doubling the size of the IRS, 87,000 agents, okay. So make that argument. If you're in favor of If you're voting against money, if you don't think we need a secure border, okay, you're free to make that argument. I don't understand the electorate that supports that kind of thing, but that's what's such a surprise to everybody.
I know. I really would like to have someone who voted that way to explain what their thinking is about it. What makes you? Is it just because the abortion issue, and so the abortion issue, I can forgive everything else because as long as that person stands with it's okay to have an abortion up until the baby's born. And then you go like, okay, well, that's another subject. Like, please make me understand how that's okay, or you feel like that's all right. But I can understand it's not from a woman's point of view, but just from a theological point of view, is that if a child of 13 or something has been raped and gets pregnant, that's, and incest and that kind of thing in the life of the mother. Mm-hmm. I'm sure that God understands, okay, this is a reasonable thing to say this isn't right for this child to go through this trauma because they already went through the trauma of rape. Now they have to have a baby. We don't see that. That's just personally. But I think that the choice that you had as a woman was to have sex with that guy. That's your choice. You made that choice.
And what kind of birth control to use.
Yes. Now the birth control isn't used and you get pregnant, game's over. You took the choice. You made the choice, and then the accountability becomes that you now are going to be a mommy, and you have to not murder the child. That's what that's how I see it, and that's just I understand everybody has different stories and things like that happen, and they come to you and say yes, but when will this happen? That's what I'm saying. There are exceptions, but the first line of defense is, what are you doing to keep that from happening? There's plenty of medicines. There's plenty of all kind of birth control stuff that you can take, and that's not out of the realm of possibility.
Well, it's been argued to death for 50 years.
Yes.
And,
more than that,
it
I'm
will
sure.
be now. It is a state issue.
Right.
So each state gets to decide what they're going to do. And originally in the Constitution, that's what they were saying on lots of different issues. Each state can become a laboratory.
Right.
Where they can try different things in different states, and everybody can see what happens and how it works and if it's a good thing or not. So on this issue now, the states are going to have to individually decide how they want to handle that issue. So my answer would be, go to your state legislatures, go to your representatives and make that argument and try to get that passed in your state legislature where it belongs.
And to see what, they're saying, they're making those commercials that were just, ridiculous and very, very, scary. And they say, look, here's the deal, is that if we are women, we have the right to our own body, and our decisions should be between us and the doctor. And they want to put the doctor in jail. That's what they want to do here in Texas. They want to put the doctor in jail. And that wasn't true, but this is what the commercials were saying. Mm-hmm. And that's what's so outrageous, is that poor child who's in that room. And I think that's what was good when Dr. Oz said, y'all have talked about the woman and the doctor and the woman and the doctor, and you've left out the third person in that room.
Somebody else in the room, right?
Yeah, so. And that was excellent. That was a very good statement to make. But and it's hard, it's complicated, and there's so many different types of stories that you have to individualize each one of them. But if you to come up with some kind of what like Lindsey Graham was trying to do, like in 6 weeks, if it's viable in 6 weeks, then you can't have the abortion after that, and just make that go across the board, and let's don't worry about it anymore.
Well, again, every state is going to have have that conversation and have that discussion, and they'll each decide how they want to handle it.
Yeah,
and that's where the argument belongs. But
and not the government touch it. Don't touch it. You let the people decide, and then you just go along with that. But I think that that those people who won in those districts, and they say it was because the abortion part was more important than the other. That's so hard. Isn't that difficult?
That's not what the polls said. The polls didn't reflect that. And you get some guy. I tell you what's interesting with Charlie Crist. He, if I'm not mistaken, is the first person to ever lose an election in Florida as a Democrat, as an independent, and as a Republican. He's lost.
That's right, because he changed from being a Republican to
And
he became a
DeSantis,
Democrat.
I heard who I think was Steve Moore was saying that with respect to DeSantis's 20-point margin, which is a Grand Canyon, especially when we're this polarized and everything. That guy won by 20 points. And he was saying, well, there are about 1.5 million New Yorkers who have fled New York and they moved to Florida. And a lot of them were conservatives and Republicans and stuff. So Zeldin loses the governor's race in New York. and Florida is now a solid red state and not a purple state or anything. And, if DeSantis doesn't have a mandate, I don't know what it takes to get one.
Right.
20
right.
points.
Yeah.
That's huge.
That's why this is going to be interesting, the announcement that Trump's going to make on the 15th. Has this changed that announcement, do you think?
Who knows? I mean, the guy's totally unpredictable.
Right.
You never know what's going to come out of his mouth. I know his people are advising him to not make an announcement because the midterms are not over.
Right.
We don't know what's going to happen, and they may not be over till the new year, which I heard another commentator say, listen, during the midterms of 1862, when Lincoln was president,
Civil War.
they were counting ballots by candlelight, by hand, in the middle of a civil war,
Right.
and we knew, this is a national election, we knew within a week
Yes.
what the result was. And here we have these computers and all this stuff, and they're telling us it might be the first of the year. That seems like
Ludicrous, yeah. There's something going on. And that's what causes all the speculation and the theories and I know that Richard has his own theory about what's happened and where those votes are, don't you, Richard?
Where are they, Richard? Tell us.
What do you mean? What votes?
What votes? That's bad. The votes that they say there's 1 million votes sitting out there somewhere and they can't find them.
Well, I haven't heard that. But.
Well,
Yeah.
the million we got 100.
And I'm the one coming up with conspiracy theories.
I'm just saying.
Where are the trucks? Where are the trucks with the votes?
And they're hiding in some warehouse somewhere, and that's where they are. But I think it's the number that comes in that they've counted, and they know that this many people voted. Then they have a problem because we're missing votes. Where are they?
Well, they have about 600,000 ballots in Arizona that have not yet been counted.
Well,
and they're working on counting those, and the speculation is that those are going to be heavily weighted toward Republicans. If that's the case, then Kerry Lake becomes the governor, and we'll see what happens with
Well, I also
Mark
think
Kelly.
that's the disadvantage of the mail by vote system,
mail-in
because vote by mail.
Yeah.
Because they know how many they send out, but they can't guarantee they're coming in. So,
Which is, listen, the bottom line of all of this is wherever you happen to land on the political spectrum, every single person needs to have absolute confidence in the process, and that these ballots are valid, and that they have the chain of custody of these ballots is secure, and that they are counted properly. If everybody has confidence in the process, in the integrity of our elections, you've got to start there, because if you don't, I think when it takes 2 months to count, the conspiracy theories start coming and what happened, and all this uncertainty begins to float around out there, and I don't think that's healthy at all.
well, yeah, I mean, guys, I agree with that 100%. And you got people, like I was reading this stat that it was like 11 million total Texans who could have voted didn't vote or something like that.
Now, that is really sad. We all need to be slapped around.
The integrity of the process that has, and Florida fixed it, didn't they? I mean, they had
Yes.
remember the hanging chads and all that. They said never again. We're not doing that again. And Florida very, very quickly counted all their ballots.
Do you remember that, the hanging chads? Do you know how old
I couldn't vote during that election, so.
But how old would you have been?
Well, that was Bush v.
2000
Gore, right?
End of 1999.
George W. and was that 2000? 2000, wasn't it?
Well, but we were waiting for the 2000 to come because we all thought all the computers were going to go away and go off and all that stuff. So I think it was right coming up to that. But like the November before, that's in 1999. Would that have been?
I'd have to go back and look.
Well,
but
I can look it up.
Oh, you got a computer in front of you, don't you? Okay. But it was hilarious. I mean, it was hilarious sitting there watching those people.
It was 2000.
That's the first time I remember, and I have to admit, I was pretty angry because when Al Gore refused to concede the election, I said he is casting doubt into the process. He is casting doubt into the electorate. I said, let the process play out. We have a process, let it work. And it'll be decided. It does not need to be decided in the courts. It needs to be decided by the ballots and by the American people. And that's the first time that I recall that happening, and now it just happens. We kind of accept that. It used to be election day, and we knew before we all went to bed who won and who lost, and we don't anymore. And I think that's a serious problem. We got to fix that.
Well, what was bad was because they had to puncture the perforated hole there, and if it looked like they didn't intend to, so they started the intention. What became the big deal is they said that it's hanging, that Chad's hanging.
And the margin was razor thin. I mean, hundreds of votes. There were millions cast, and it came down to, so they were there. Just Google it. Google hanging Chads, and you'll see a picture of this guy holding a ballot up, and he's with remember that? Yeah, his eye is real big because you're looking at it.
That was iconic.
Magnifying glass. Yeah.
And
we can't do that again.
No. But I think that it was interesting because everybody was really intent on do you remember the debates between Gore and Bush? Mm-hmm. And what was the moment that stood out in those debates? Do you remember?
There were several, when Gore kind of walked over into W's space and
that's
all that.
And he turned around.
But again, I go back to what I said the other day, on Tuesday. These debates are ridiculous. They're glorified press conferences. They're dog and pony shows. We don't learn anything. Everybody's just wanting to see who has the best one-liner, which they didn't write, by the way. Their staff or somebody say, slip this in when you can. And the press is wanting to know who makes a gaffe. We're better than that. That whole process. I would refuse to participate in one, really.
And whoever should have told George's dad, don't look at your watch.
Yeah, right. I mean, stuff like that. Why do I care? Look at his watch. So what?
Or the way he sips the water.
Right.
I remember that being one. I remember that being one.
History turns on something as stupid as that.
That's exactly right. Because we're looking for all. It's just like you want to see the blood in the game. Okay, so that you're out because you just did that. That was really stupid. And it was like the Kennedy who they thought they were going to put all their hope on. The Kennedy, I don't know his first name, but anyway,
John Kennedy.
No, it was his. This was his. This was like a cousin and the Kennedys.
Okay. Yeah.
And this was just recently, and they put him up on stage to do this. It was the follow-up to a debate.
I know what you're talking about. I remember.
And he had taken lip gloss and put it on because his lips were dry, and someone said, you need lip gloss because your lips are really dry. So he puts it all on. What he does, he puts this glaringly shiny lip gloss and is trying to talk, and and the light is just bouncing off of it and everything. It looked so bad, and everybody laughed about it. SNL did a thing on it. It was just
if we structured our debates the way the Lincoln Douglas debates were, where there is no moderator, there's a timekeeper, and you let the two candidates who are asking the American people to loan them power, let them decide what the questions are going to be, what the topics are, and how long they're going to talk about it. And let's have an adult conversation about some of these huge issues that our country is facing.
Right.
And and the American people would learn an awful lot. They would learn a lot. And that would be beneficial to the country. But what's going on right now just needs to stop.
And
somehow.
Yes, because the questions that the moderators would ask, you'd go like, where did you get that? Like, what kind of ice cream were you really eating the day that we took the picture of you eating the ice cream, Mr. President? Oh, it was chocolate. And like, why would you ask questions that are so inane? I was just like, why would you do that? And it's because they really their narrative is trying to get across, and you feel like, you're trying to make the other one look bad or this one look good or that. And you have power, you feel that power that you can do that. And it's true, if you've got the press and the media all on your side, who do you find to ask those questions? Because it's difficult. It's
Well,
really
and
difficult.
what if you look at somebody who won't appear, who won't have that conversation? Look at Carrie Lake's opponent in Arizona.
Right.
Refused to have a conversation with her. You look at Joe Biden that was kept in the basement during the presidential election.
Right.
Look at Fetterman, who, I mean, I felt sorry. That was cringeworthy. I mean, you know, he was having trouble. If he has a medical issue, which I think he clearly does, but he had people writing all of his remarks on a teleprompter so he could stand up there and read them. That was really bad. That was hard to watch.
And he starts off
and he didn't
with-
want to do it, but he didn't, you know, but what did these people won? So
But
if
they
you refuse
waited-
to debate and you refuse to, all you got to do, so what does that teach the left? That
But-
we can have these radical policies, these radical people, and all we got to do is put them in the basement and keep them out of sight and out of mind and refuse to participate, and they're going to win. It'll be okay. That's how you win.
But there were thousands of people who voted early, and then the Fetterman debate comes up, and they wait till it's too late for anyone to change their mind. They, you know, it's
I'm pretty
just
sure you
too
can change
late.
it. I think you can go back.
What?
I think you can go back in Pennsylvania.
No, Well, they said they couldn't go back and change their vote, but anyway, they were so upset after seeing him and hearing him, and it wasn't fair to Oz, I don't think, because he kept trying to get him to do it earlier, but the early voting came in, and there was.
You know, he's in Pennsylvania, and he's against fracking. He's against energy independence.
Right.
He is in favor of 87,000 new IRS agents. Somebody with views like his, if the people want to elect him, that's their business. They can elect him, but he ought to. You can't make him debate. You can't make him show up. You can't make him answer questions. And I think that the left has learned a lot. We don't have to participate. We can produce these wild-eyed people.
We can say anything we want to say, and it doesn't matter. People believe them. And that just astounds me.
Well, I wrote down some of the things. I was just looking. I wrote down some of the rhetoric that we'd heard. This may be the last election of our lives, one said. Historian Beshelosh, you know, he said, our children, if the Republicans win this election, our children may be killed.
I heard
Really?
that.
This is exactly like Germany in the 1930s. Fascism, threats to democracy. I mean, that kind of rhetoric is not helpful.
No.
And there are people that'll fall for it. But I heard Stacey Abrams said about the black men that they were subjected to disinformation. Okay, let's call their intelligence into question. They're too stupid to understand and to figure it out themselves. And Jen Psaki said the same thing about Latinos. The disinformation that was put out to Latinos. So basically, they're too stupid to understand. You know, we need to interpret this for them. Okay, I think the Latinos are gonna and the black men are gonna listen to that and go, you know, we're perfectly capable. We have brains in our heads and we can make up our mind. We don't need you. Thank you. Make your case and we'll decide.
That's exactly
It's just
right.
astounding. So, but we've also gotten from the place where you're not a fellow American with whom I have a disagreement. You're a bad person if you disagree. You're a Nazi.
Racist, Nazi.
Why would I listen to you? By
Yeah.
definition, you're evil. You don't deserve to be listened to. So we're going to punish you. We're going to shut you down. We're going to. That's a different place for the American electorate, I think, and it's not healthy. And we need to get out of this place.
Oh, brother, yes. Well, I think since we're all on a hanging chad right now, wondering what's going to happen to finalize this, because once we know if the Republicans take charge barely of the Senate, and it's not Kamala that's making the decision for the Democrats. That's what right now. If it's 48, but with hers it's 49.
If
so
it's 50-50, then she breaks the tie.
Right. Yeah. So that's what that's what's scary. And so we have to wonder if they do take that, is everybody in the Republican Party on board with what the majority is saying, like Joe Manchin, not Joe Manchin, the guy that's on the fence all the time. He's a good-looking guy from Utah.
You're talking about Mitt Romney.
Yes, Mitt Romney.
Yeah.
And that is he really who he says he is, and we never know where he's going to vote. Like he's not a real hardliner with the Republican Party. It doesn't seem.
But
to me.
look what you could Google this too. Look what Harry Reid said about him when Harry Reid was in power.
Yes.
He said Mitt Romney did not pay his taxes.
Right.
Which means he's essentially a felon, a cheat, a thief, and everything. He didn't pay his taxes. And a reporter called him on it later and said, "Look what you said. You said this." And he kind of went, "Well, it worked, didn't it?"
Oh, that just got me. It worked, didn't it? Yeah. That was.
What kind of person does that?
Oh, and no accountability. Nothing happens to him for doing stuff like that. And that's changing an election. And they're talking about, anybody that does anything that's out to change an election, how bad they are and that they should be indicted and all that. And then that's exactly what he was doing. And just lie about it. We'll say we're sorry later. We'll do a cease and desist, and that'll be fine. But we'll say whatever we want to right now. That drives me crazy. And I think that if the young people that they say helped move the Democrats the way they moved them, this is that because of the excusing their college tuition. Mm-hmm. If they moved into that and went out and voted, see, that's why I don't know if they've given us that kind of information yet. If it was largely, college kids that really came out and voted this time, because normally they don't show up like that. But this they were going to because they wanted to make sure they got their money.
Essentially bought them.
Yeah, and did you find this is what's so great is that they went and did a survey of what these kids are going to do with the money, how they're going to pay it back, how they're going to pay their loan back, and they said, "Well, I'm not spending it on that loan debt. I'm going to go out and have a good time. I'm going to go on vacation and I'm going to spend it on this." And that's what they were being very honest about what they were going to do with that money, which we would all understand that. That's why you don't do it. Is it because you're giving them a free ride and they're going to go just get drunk and have a party and do that, and that's what they think about it. It's not any gracious gift that now they don't have to pay that back.
It's an economic issue, but it's also a character issue.
Yeah, true. That's true.
It's a moral issue. And
Yes.
You're probably not allowed to say that either. When you start talking about this is a moral issue,
Yeah.
it's unethical to do that. Why should somebody that never went to college and is, went out to make a living to work hard,
Mm-hmm.
why should they pay the bills of some privileged person who went to college, who's, according to the information that's out there, they're going to do much better over the course of their career than somebody who didn't. I've got a problem with that.
Well, Richard's the only one that's close enough to that age group to ask him. If the government said, "I'm going to pay off, this much money on your tuition," and so you get a check for that, how would you use that check?
Put it in Twitter. No. Put it in Twitter,
answer.
and then I'll pay it off.
Invest
Yeah.
it.
Well, from what I understood about that whole thing, it's the you don't get a check.
They think they're going to get a check.
Well, no, because the two loans that the government was talking about forgiving were basically controlled by the government. So they know that that's how it would be forgiven. They don't send you a check for them to pay them back, pay the loan people. I think the government would just go to the loan, like, here you go. You have this guy on this list. Here's $5,000. Here's $10,000. They don't go to the individual.
Did you see? I think it was.
So you know that, right, Cindy? They don't. The individual does not get a check.
We had that discussion before.
Yeah.
But they just did a thing on
Well, yeah.
TV
You
that
ask any
said,
kid, "Hey, if we just give you a check, what are you gonna do with it?" And it's like, "I'm going to Chuck E. Cheese's, man." Like, of course they are.
that's what
the
they're
federal
planning
government
on.
nationalized student loans. What was it, in 2011?
Yeah.
2012, something like that. I don't know why they decided that nobody should be in the student loan business except the federal government.
Oh.
But I saw I believe it was AOC. I could be wrong. Who was questioning these bankers?
Yeah, I
Did you
saw
see
that. I saw that.
And she was clearly A, uninformed, B, her staff dropped the ball, did not do her any favors or anything, because she was grilling one of the CEOs of one of our major
Bank of
banks.
America.
Was it the CEO of Bank of America, about student loans and what a con artist he is and a rip-off artist and all that. And he just let her go, and then he said, we haven't been in the student loan business since 2011. Y'all took that all over. Y'all are the ones who did that.
Oh, that's great.
And
That's
you know,
great.
what do you do? But
Well, I mean, the student loan thing was really weird in 2011 because is that when it basically became you couldn't declare bankruptcy through
right,
your
you
student?
can't declare
like,
bankruptcy. You can't get out from underneath that.
Yeah, and I think it's one of the few things that you can't.
right.
And I think that's. But did that happen in 2011? That
I don't know the answer to that, but
'cause
I
that's
know
what-
that you can't escape it.
That's
with
where I
bankruptcy.
smell fishery right there, like fish, and it's just like something's going on with that. And
Well,
And these colleges, though, they have zero. The people who benefit the most from these student loans are the ones who are dishing them out. I mean, the federal government deputized universities to distribute these loans and handle these loans and all this. And the university, if I'm the university, I have absolutely zero incentive to keep tuition down or anything because I'm going to get my money.
right.
If you default on your loan, the federal government's going to cover your loan. The federal government guaranteed your loan, so you're going to be on the hook. I'm going to get my money from the federal government. So I have absolutely no incentive whatsoever. And if you get a degree that, you're coming to me for education, you're coming to the university,
Right.
and I'm going to say, gee whiz, Cindy, if you go, yes, you're going to be $100,000 in debt, but it's okay because you're going to make all this money. And, I'm going to deliver a product, education to you, and you're going to take that and you're going to go have a fine career and make all this money. Well, a whole bunch of those people don't finish college. I don't know what the numbers are, but it's millions.
Oh, that's
don't get their
interesting.
degree. So now they have the debt without the degree. And so now what are they going to do? But they also, if you get a degree in basket weaving, or as Ben Shapiro says, lesbian dance theory, and it turns out nobody in the private sector is all that enamored with basket weaving or lesbian dance, and you can't get a job, then what do you've got this debt. So people are getting married later. People are putting off buying a house. I mean, it affects
Right.
them economically very
Right.
seriously. It's affecting the economy. So when you get into the weeds a little bit, it's a lot nastier than it looks.
Well, it's interesting that how much the children in the high schools are looking to see what they want to go into, what they want to take on in college, what kind of occupation they want, and what's becoming more and more attractive are the skilled labor.
Right,
And
absolutely.
the two-year labor deal and
Well,
how much money they
I
can
just
make.
looked up, for example, University of Texas. And this is on the internet, so you don't know if it's right. It said from 2011 to 2022, it increased at 22%.
And you know what the endowment is at the University of
Yeah.
Texas? And this is my alma mater, so I'm talking about home here.
That's why I looked it up.
$43 billion is UT's endowment. Harvard has a $45 billion.
Billion with a B.
With a B, yeah.
Oh,
They could have bought Twitter.
That's 40. Yeah,
They could have bought Twitter.
could've
And we
bought
could have done it all the classes on Twitter.
that's 45,000 million is what that is. So I think one great reform would be that the university has to co-sign on the student loans.
Yeah, right.
So that if the university, if this, that makes it in their incentive to make sure that this person finishes school and gets a job
Right.
and gets on a career path,
Right.
and maybe they stop having classes that are, you can't get a degree in basket weaving anymore or whatever it is, because unless you're going to be a professor in that, why would we're going to get out of these degrees that don't pay anything. We're going to make sure that you get an education that's going to allow you that it will command a price in the marketplace. And if this gets screwed up somehow, the university's on the hook if they have to co-sign those loans. I think that's a great idea.
Well, they ought to start teaching swimming lessons because in California, if you want to be a lifeguard, you can make up to $500,000 a year being a lifeguard. starting pay, $500,000 a year. I couldn't believe. I mean, I had to
I don't
listen to
believe you
that
right
2 or
now.
3. Huh?
I don't believe you right now at all.
Okay, look it up. Look it
Okay.
up. Lifeguard at in California,
But you know how many plumbers we need,
500,000.
how many pipe fitters we need, how many welders we
and
need.
they make
Oh, you can make six
bank.
figures
Oh,
if
yeah.
you have a work ethic that's even halfway there.
Right.
If you're a welder or something like that with
And
a
a
high
welder.
school education,
That's right.
I mean, my goodness, with no debt.
You know,
or
and
very
and,
little debt, debt that's quickly paid off.
and a lot of the high schools are giving you 2 years in that field so that you can go into, apprenticeship or whatever, and like almost immediately, and then you start working on that. That's awesome. Did you find it?
Yeah, you're talking about the actual county lifeguard for the beach, not like
The
at the
beach.
local pool.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just letting you know. So
Well, I didn't say
like Baywatch
Yeah,
people.
right. I didn't say pool. I said
We could be
a
lifeguards,
lifeguard.
Cindy.
$500,000.
We could be lifeguards.
Yes.
You could be the Baywatch.
Yeah.
20
babe,
Los
I could
Angeles
be the guy that,
county
you know,
lifeguards,
with the
20 of them
sunglasses and
reported
everything?
between 300 to 500,000.
See?
And they're probably the head people.
Right.
How much?
You think?
How much is it?
They said 20 people who were in the organization got 300 to 500,000.
Okay.
See?
And 98 earned at least 200.
Well, that's probably worth about 80,000 in Texas dollars.
Yeah.
I mean, by the time
Right.
they get through paying, but still,
Sure.
But when
That's-
you say lifeguard, you have to explain to people, we're talking about people on the beach of California.
What are they called?
What they're called, Baywatch.
Yes, they're lifeguards, for crying out loud. And they probably got their start at a swimming pool somewhere, and they applied for the job. They had to have some kind of experience in doing that. You know what I loved? The lifeguards at the
Well, see,
swimming.
this is where they break it down. So this is what's important when you say that kind of money. People think that was on their check.
Oh, okay.
So the guy who got paid $510,000 in 2021 was a captain. He earned $150,000 in salary, $28,000 in perks, $85,000 in benefits, and $246,000 in overtime.
In overtime. Well, what did he end up with? $500,000.
I'm breaking it down for you, so
Okay.
you don't think they're just getting a check, $500,000.
Well, when you say there are no jobs, what you're really saying is that all human wants and needs have been satisfied.
True.
What you mean is there are no jobs at a certain price. If I were to tell my employer that the minimum wage I was willing to accept in exchange for my services this year was $2.5 million, most people would be out of a job. There's no job
That's
for
right.
most people at that price in
That's
whatever
right.
it is that they're doing. So,
No, but the skilled labor, you get started quickly, and you're not having to go through all that re-education, all the stuff you learned in high school. Again, you learn it in college, then you learn some specifics. That's fine. But the tuition and what they charge and the professors and what a lot of times their narrative is in there is not what you want your kids, to. It's like we think it's really bad in the elementary school, and in college they're just as given the information.
I'm really proud of Lone Star College here in Montgomery County.
Yes.
And in our high schools here in
Yes.
Montgomery County, because you can graduate from high school with an associate's degree.
Yes.
You can, they're integrated. They're working with the high schools, and you can
amazing.
get a very fine education and a marketable skill from Lone Star College,
Right.
very, very reasonably.
And not have to travel outside state. You can.
Or prep yourself for a 4-year degree to do something else or whatever. But that's a deal.
That is.
And I don't know. Have you ever heard of Ozark College? I think we just need to rethink education among other things. But
Amen.
Ozark College
Yeah.
only accepts students who need financial aid. Ozark College does not offer any financial aid. They have a business there, and the students work. You go there and you get a job, and they make different, as I understand it, breads and pastries and cakes of different kinds
Yeah.
and things like that, and they sell it.
College of the Ozarks.
College of the
They
Ozarks.
charge no tuition for full-time students due
No
to
tuition.
students' work program and donations.
Right, they do work, and so the average debt of a student who graduates from Ozark College is $5,000 because they bought a car.
Oh my goodness.
So they get a 4-year education. It costs them zero. And that's the kind of innovation I think that we're going to have to explore very deeply and seriously. And they've been doing that a long time. I mean, that's a proven model. It's not some, idea that somebody came up with and, hey, let's try this, and it'll never really work. It's been working for a while.
It's interesting. Did you ever hear about the?
Yeah, it started in 1906.
1906.
By the Presbyterian Church.
Wow, I didn't know it went back that far, but yeah.
That were the trade thing that you would do, bartering, started getting popular, and we did some commercials for them and stuff. It was so interesting, and I said, no, really, you really barter. I mean, you take
a barter organization.
Yes, and they started doing this, and I don't know where they went. They went underground or whatever they did, but it was amazing, and how, because they thought that I think at that time the economy was really bad, and so they said that this is what people are going to start doing, and this is where we're going to go. And I totally understand that, but because what they were bartering was just, the stuff that you could get. And people that like to shop and people that like to go to these farmers market type of things and go to those sales, that's what you would get, is just amazing stuff. And it reminded me of that. There was a movie with Tony Randall and Debbie Reynolds, and her dad never paid any taxes or anything like that because he bartered everything with the community, and it was all done like that. And it's just exactly what they were proposing, and it looks so good. You go, why don't we do this? This should be something. Somebody needs to start this, and we take it seriously.
The mating game.
The mating game.
Maiden game.
The mating.
That was the name
The
of the
mating
movie.
game.
Mating game.
I back in the late 70s, early 80s, the Nobel Prize winning economist Milton Friedman, who's a big free market guy from University of Chicago, he came out with a film series called Free to Choose, which is on the internet now for free. You can watch it. I watched that and was just mesmerized by it. And it came in like a 10 or 12 part series or something like that. And he would explore a particular topic, and then after he was done, and he went on location. He went to Tokyo or Hong Kong. He went to East Germany. He went all over these places, and so it was well done. And after the presentation of that segment of film, he had a round table of scholars, and they would sit around and have a conversation. And I'm 19 years old, whatever, and so I was a little off from other people, but I enjoyed that kind of thing, and I was absolutely fascinated, mesmerized by what he had to say about markets and economics in the free market. And I'll never forget one of the things that he did. He's in Berlin, and he's on the West German side, of course, and he's standing on this podium overlooking the wall, and he's talking about, he said, in 1945, Berlin was homogeneous. It was just bombed out rubble, all of it.
Right.
And at a certain point, they built this wall. He shows this wall. And on one side of that wall, people can come and go as they please. They adopted different philosophies. This was the Soviet section over here, and this was the West over here. And on the Western section now, you can the stores are full of meat and produce and vegetables from all over the world. You can go to a bookstore and read anything you want. There's all these fancy cars. There's these luxury products, watches and so on, jewelry. The people wear bright colored clothes. They're happy. There's all this buzzing around, coming and going and everything. And then he described that somewhat, and then he stopped. And he said, and right over there, and he's looking across the wall, there's still war damage. And he said, and you see those towers over there? Yeah, there's real guys with real guns in those towers who will shoot you if you try to escape. And the contrast was just incredible. And it's not the only place you can make that contrast. I mean, look at a nighttime satellite photo of the Korean Peninsula.
Oh, right. That's right.
The
That's
south
a good,
part of it looks
yeah.
like a Christmas tree, and the north part of it is a ink black gaping hole. There is nothing there.
What a petri dish that was to see what's going to work, what's not going to work.
Look at Havana and Miami.
Oh.
They're 90 miles apart, but they're 75 years, 100 years apart. So it's not
true.
a difficult conversation or illustration to have. Would you rather have this or this? High quality products that are plentiful at inexpensive prices, or do you want massive shortages of food and everything else? That fascinates me, but that kind of thing has to be pointed out and has to be taught, and people ought to think about it.
Yes, because if you don't want to have that repeated in your own country, then you need to be studying what happened in the other countries. So this is like, don't you get it? Can't you see this? It's like the border, like going down to the border, and what a mess that is, and how we had it pretty well straightened out. We felt like, okay, we've got a plan. There's a plan. Let's try and stay with this plan. And now they're using these cargo, cargo, building up those, trying to build a wall. It's so pitiful. It's so pathetic that this is what we've come to. And it makes us look like the ones who feel like they can't come in anymore. We got to stop them. We got to keep them back. It makes you look awful. Like you're such a racist, or that you don't feel sorry for them and all that. But we have no border at all. We have no border.
Gorbachev was talking. Actually, Margaret Thatcher was talking to Ronald Reagan at one point, and when Gorbachev came on the scene, and Reagan couldn't get any footing underneath him because these Soviet leaders all kept dying. He said, they keep dying on me. The first 3 or 4 guys that were in power during Reagan's early presidency, they were just dying on him. And so here comes Gorbachev, and he's this young guy, full of juice, energetic, smile and all that, not the bushy eyebrow, guys. And Margaret Thatcher had a meeting with him, and she said, we had a fascinating talk, and she was talking to Reagan, and she said, we can do business with this guy. He's different. But he doesn't understand economics. And he said, really? He said, yeah, because we were talking about our jobs in our different countries and what we do and what the job of a prime minister is and how our countries function and all that. And he looks at me and he goes, I was explaining to him about my job and what I do. And he said, yes, but how do you see to it that the people have food? And she said, that kind of stunned her a little bit. Of course, she doesn't. That has nothing to do with her job.
Right.
In his mind, there has to be a commissar somewhere directing what kind of this many apples, this many chestnuts or whatever, and the production. And she said, I don't do that at all. But the island of Great Britain hadn't produced enough food to feed itself in over 100 years. So the question is, how does food get to Great Britain? I noticed very few people are starving to death in Great Britain. It's a first world country with lots of good stuff going on there.
Right.
And the answer is prices. Prices move products around the world. Prices move food and meat and vegetables to the island of Great Britain, and that's how they get it done. And that happens with free trade.
We started off with the Astros. We went through the post-election, and now we're in Britain. And what happened there? But Denton is just so full of it. He's got so much knowledge just oozes out of him, and it's great. Thank you
let's talk
so much.
Talk about the Astros again. So we come back and talk about baseball. That'd be fun.
Oh, well, listen, thank you so much for being here and commiserating with us for different things. And Richard, thank you for joining in. I appreciate that so much. And I thank you so much for watching and listening. And just have a great day. And it's almost the weekend, so go out, and it's going to be cold. So get your jackets and everything for the weekend. It's going to be great. Listen, thank you. And first responders, we love you. We love you. And even better, God loves you more than we do. How can that be? But it's true. We won't see you next week. We'll be here Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. We're here. And anybody that would like to be a sponsor, please sponsor. Just sponsor me, or this community radio, sponsor them, but you can put my name on it. So, okay. Anyway, so if you feel like that, you like to do that, would you leave some money out there as you walk out? Thank you so much. I love having them right here so they have to answer. Okay, guys, thank you. Have a great weekend. Love you. Bye.